What's up, YouTube? This is Sean from Broadsword Media. So about this eye patch, I've been having this eye infection lately, and it's quite swollen, so I don't want anybody to see that in any of my videos. So I'm going to wear this for now until the problem goes away, and then all future videos after that, and hopefully for the rest of time I won't have to worry about this again. Anyways, what this video is about, this is Broadsword Media's first ever Top 10 Tuesdays episode. And to celebrate the 7-8-1 Carolina Panthers winning the wild card round, I'm going to do a top 10 list of the worst NFL teams to win the playoffs. This should be a fun list. Hope you guys enjoy it. And let's get this started. At number 10, we got the 1990 Cincinnati Bengals. This team was pretty much an average team the whole year. Nothing really too great. They did start the season with a 3-game winning streak, but they just played a steady medium the rest of the year. They wouldn't even be in the playoffs without starting out 3-0. This team is also on the list because after this season they had consecutive losing teams from 1991 until 2002, and they hadn't returned to the playoffs until 2005. It's no wonder why the Bengals still have Marvin Lewis since 2003. He pretty much was their savior. At number 9, we got the 1978 Atlanta Falcons. This isn't the 1977 Falcons team with the extremely punishing defense that is one of the greatest of all time. That team missed the playoffs because they had an atrocious offense that just couldn't score. This team here improved much more on offense, but had a long way to go on that if they wanted to win more than just the wild card round in the playoffs. While their defense wasn't as tough as their 1977 defense, it was still tough and carried the team in many games. Fun fact, this team is the only team on the list that was shut out during the regular season or had shut out an opponent during the regular season. And they did both. Number 8, we got the 1978 Minnesota Vikings. So yeah, we're still in the year 1978 this time. And this team had a decent regular season with some ups and downs. They had a 4-game winning streak mid-season, but they got really cold at the end of the season, and they only advanced past the wildcard round because of how the playoff rules worked back then. Back in 1978, a total of 10 teams made it to the playoffs as opposed to the 12 teams that go in today. So 5 teams per conference instead of 6. However, back then, instead of only the top 2 teams from each conference having a first-round bye, the top 3 teams have a first-round bye. The Vikings won their division and were the number 3 seed since there were only 3 divisions at the time. They advanced into the divisional round without earning their way there by winning a wild card round game. They didn't even play in the wild card round. They just started out in the divisional round and didn't really deserve to have a first-round bye. At number 7, we got the 2008 San Diego Chargers. This team is a shocker. Get it? Okay, I know that was bad. Anyways, it's shocking to see a Chargers team during the late 2000s actually not have a winning record. They almost missed the playoffs. This team started off pretty mediocre and in November had a 3-game losing streak. Those 3 straight losses were all against playoff teams. They were 4-8 at the time. Luckily, they had 4 straight games against non-playoff teams, but 2 of these teams still had a shot at the playoffs, so it was no walk in the park. The Chargers won all 4 of them, so they ended the season hot. So everything sounds very positive for this team, but the problem is that they literally had 0 wins against teams that actually did make it to the playoffs. A team has to be pretty lucky to make it to the playoffs while not beating a single team that did make it to the playoffs. 6 of the Chargers' 8 losses were against those playoff teams, one of which being the Colts, who they ended up beating in the wildcard round. Number 6, we got the 2004 Minnesota Vikings. I got kind of poetic when I wrote this one, actually. So you might enjoy it or you might think it's corny. I don't care. So anyways, the mighty Dante Culpepper, back in his prime, having his best year of his career statistically, leading the league in passing yards. Peyton Manning, with his then record of 49 touchdown passes, might have been the only quarterback better than him that year. Culpepper had an amazing season, and of course the amazing Randy Moss to throw to, but stats don't mean everything. These powerful Vikings pillaged and destroyed their competition early on, but suffered serious frostbite and had a severe cold streak to end the season at 8-8. But hope arrived as they still made it to the playoffs anyways, and they rose from the ashes and beat their division rival Packers in the wild card round. But the soaring Eagles flew in and took down the Vikings' hope with their mighty talons. At number 5, we got the 1998 Arizona Cardinals. This team is bad. It's amazing that they were 9-7, especially with net points of -53. But they lost twice to their NFC East rival Cowboys and lost twice to the Giants. Both of these teams were their best competition in the division, but they couldn't get a single win against them, allowing the Cowboys to take the division at 10-6 and allowing the Giants to eventually be 8-8. But they did beat the Redskins and Eagles twice. Oh wait, those teams were a combined 9-23. The Eagles were so bad that year that they drafted Donovan McNabb with the 2nd overall pick the following season. Yep, draft history. Great quarterback though. Anyways, what really makes this team lucky to be 9-7 is that every single team they beat ended the season with a losing record. Every time they faced a winning team, they lost. It's amazing they even pulled out a 20-7 win at Dallas in the wild card round. And to add to that, after this season, the Cardinals had missed the playoffs every year until 2008, which again was a 9-7 year. But that time, they made it to the Super Bowl surprisingly. At number 4, we got the 2004 St. Louis Rams. In 2004, there were several 8-8 teams. The Rams actually had the worst net points of all the 8-8 teams at -73, but they made it to the playoffs luckily. This was a year where the NFC was bad. The AFC was the far superior conference with teams like the 15-1 Steelers, the 14-2 Patriots, and the 12-4 Colts and Chargers as their top 4 teams. The NFC's top 4 teams were the 13-3 Eagles, the 11-5 Falcons, the 10-6 Packers, and the 9-7 Seahawks. Clearly the Rams made it to the playoffs thanks to being in a weak conference. The other wild card was the 8-8 Vikings, but the Rams were worse because they lost horrendously to the Falcons 47-17 in the divisional round after beating the Seahawks in the wild card round only by 7 points. Look at what the Vikings did. They beat the Packers by 14 and then lost to the Eagles 27-14. A bigger win than the Rams, followed by a loss much closer than the Rams. And to add to that, the Rams have yet to see the playoffs since 2004. At number 3, we got the 2011 Denver Broncos. This Broncos team is extremely lucky to be in the playoffs. In an ideal season where there wouldn't be injuries, this Broncos team would have never seen the playoffs, and the Tim Tebow hype would have been much smaller. First off, Tebow isn't even in the NFL anymore because he is very inconsistent, and even with his miracle fourth quarter comebacks, he played badly the whole game in order to get to that point. He had a great defense to make sure the score stayed close for much of those games. In the early going of this season, the Oakland Raiders were clearly the best team in the AFC West, led by Jason Campbell, who helped lead the charge for the Raiders to improve to 8-8 in 2010 once he was completely assured the starting job at quarterback. The team started off 2011 on a great note, going 4-2, while the Broncos by then were 1-4 with a loss to the Raiders in Week 1. The Raiders had never looked this good in a long time and were on their way to cruise to the playoffs at the pace they were going, and they had inspiration to play better to honor Al Davis after his death earlier in the 2011 season. But then Jason Campbell got injured against the Browns, which the Raiders won the game, but since then they just weren't the same. And adding insult to injury was another injury, and it was to star running back Darren McFadden. In the end, I'm saying that the reason the Broncos made the playoffs that year was because of the injuries to the Raiders and a Chargers hot streak late in the season to stop the Raiders from ending the season at 9-7 to take the AFC West anyway. Coming in at number 2 is the 2014 Carolina Panthers. This new Panthers team played in what could be the worst division in the history of the NFL. Not only did each team have a losing record, but their closest competition, the Saints, lost to the Falcons twice. Not only that, but the Buccaneers are 2-14. This division is so bad they have a team that's bad enough to get the first or second overall pick of the upcoming draft to go along with how bad the rest of the division is. The teams in this division have a combined record of 22, 41, and 1. If you saw our wild card weekend predictions, you'd know that I picked the Panthers to beat the Cardinals, and I was right about that. But the only reason why I picked them was because the Cardinals' injuries, especially at quarterback, were too much for them, especially if you saw how they played the last few weeks. At number 1, we got the 2010 Seattle Seahawks. That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. They were 7-9. This team was very lucky to even make the playoffs. They were in such a terrible NFC West division that they won it in the very last week with a record of 7-9, and there were a total of 16 teams with better records than them. That's half the entire league. 5 of those teams did not make the playoffs. The Seahawks faced 4 of those 5 teams and lost to 3 of them: the Raiders, the Buccaneers, and the Giants. And every team they played against during the regular season that made the playoffs, they lost to, except for the Chicago Bears, who they ended up losing to in the divisional round anyway after beating the New Orleans Saints in the wild card round at home. Also a team the Seahawks lost to in the regular season. Thanks so much for watching our first ever Top 10 Tuesdays. The reason why I got upload on Wednesday was because I was working my day job on Sunday. I wanted the day off, but I couldn't get the day off. And I didn't realize how long this project would be to work on. It seemed like a short project, but there was a lot of research involved and a lot of Googling and stuff like that. So it was quite the endeavor, but I got it done on Wednesday. I guess we'll just call this episode All-in-One Wednesday. Next week, I will make sure that the episode of Top 10 Tuesday is uploaded on Tuesday. There's much more time to prepare for it this time, and this time the episode will be about top 10 coolest units in strategy games. Anyways, please let us know what other football teams you think deserve to be on this list. What teams you think were the worst teams that actually had advanced in the playoffs, besides the ones already listed. Let us know what else you'd like to see a top 10 of.